Welcome, welcome. And we'll start off with our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
And I'd like to dedicate this to Shirley Barkin.
Yes, let's do that. Le'ilui nishmata. May her soul have an elevation. And as I mentioned before, when Harlan told me about that, about her passing, that may she be basking with Jean.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, her husband. Nice people, very nice people. Yes. So we are, of course, now in a new book. We've gotten into this particular Parsha of Sh'mot. We're on chapter 3, and things have changed very, very quickly. There was this moment when the Egyptians were so appreciative of Joseph and how he had basically saved their lives, and the Hebrews were doing well there, and now all of a sudden there's a new situation. And I was really reflecting on this, given the times we seem to be going through, that these descriptions within the Bible are so basic and really reflect a reality in terms of our own history, that this is a pattern that gets repeated just constantly, and of course it's something to reflect on. At any rate, we are here. Moses has, by this time, he is actually 80 years old, believe it or not, somewhere around there. If you calculate that he lived to 120 and figure they wandered in the desert for 40 years, and you do the subtraction, you get him at 80 years old. And he has encountered God at the burning bush. That's where we're at. And he's having this conversation with God, and he is about to be commissioned to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. So, Vayomer Hashem, and Hashem said, Ra'or ra'iti et oni ami asher b'Mitzrayim. Indeed, I have seen the poverty of my people who are in Egypt. Interesting, by the way, I know this isn't commented on, but if I were to do, as you've heard me use the term from time to time, a diuk, which means to put an emphasis on certain words which create an interpretation. In other words, look at the sentence, and it said, I have seen the poverty of my people who are in Egypt. The diuk is on who are in Egypt. In other words, the sentence would have made just as much sense if we'd left out those words. In other words, had the sentence said, I have certainly seen the poverty of my people, right? And just left this out. Then going on with the sentence, just to translate it, ve'etzakatam shamati, and their cries I have heard, mipnei nogsav, on account of their taskmasters, kiadati et machovav, for I know, I'm aware of, or experienced their pain, their pain. Interesting, right? The word yada, to know, or sometimes I feel it has the connotation of experiencing. In other words, knowledge in a particular way. But let me get back into this. So what if it had left out this Asher b'Mitzrayim? What does that do? Because it qualifies my people. If it had just said, I have indeed seen the poverty or the affliction of my people who are and their cries, right? Then it would imply that there is unique, that the Hebrews are God's people, period. But when he says who are in Egypt, it implies there are people who may be elsewhere, who are also Ami, who are also God's people. So that's the diuk, that this phrase here actually qualifies and suggests then that there are other people who could also be considered Ami, right? God's chosen ones. And of course, my sense is that it isn't, there is to some extent um, an unquestionable, an unconditional love that God has with the Jewish people. But on the other hand, I really feel that we are supposed to earn that love, that we are supposed to appreciate it, and by appreciating it, earn it. And that any person who acts in a godly way is in fact becomes God's person. And it's possible that because of the Torah and because of the discipline in our history and everything, that we have a unique place to play in the role of world history. But at the same time, not to just, rely on it as saying, well, we can do whatever we like and we've got license to behave the way because God's going to forgive us anyway, and that kind of thing. But to have a sense, and that's all that I'm pulling out of this little extra phrase, Asher b'Mitzrayim, who are in Egypt. So let's go into the Rashi here. Ki adati et machav, because I know his, here we go, okay? I've experienced his pain. Kamu v'yada Elohim. This parallels elsewhere where it says, and God knew, God was aware. Klomar, that is to say, ki samti lev, and I love this because I paid attention. God paid attention. Lehitbonin, to consider, to reflect on, v'ladat, and to know, right? Here we go. Yada, ladat, and to know, to truly know. Et machovav, its pain, its affliction. Velo elamti einai, and I didn't turn away. I didn't conceal my eyes. In other words, it's like as if God did not pay attention to it, just ignored it. Velo etom et ozni, and I didn't block my ears, mitzakatam, from their cries. Interesting images going on here. But I know we have a phrase, Imo anochi betzara, I am with him in his troubles, in his tribulations. It's God speaking of himself. And this yadati could certainly have that connotation. And to pull this out a little further, that when humanity is cruel, right? It's hurting God when we act in cruel manners. And that in fact the disasters that happen, whether they're natural or whether they're human, um, regardless, they have an effect on the creator. And there's something I think very beautiful about that particular consideration. And also this idea of God, paying attention to these things. Va'ered lahatzilo, and I will go down. That's also an interesting verb to use, right? You can be up in heavens and ignoring the specific details. And of course, when you consider the vastness of creation, and of course, I think is it the Hubble or the Webb? Is it the Webb, the James Webb telescope? I'm not sure. I want to figure it correct, but there's a telescope that's out in space that's getting pictures of galaxies and just amazing spatial objects, the vastness of space, and yet God's concern for the sufferings of humanity. I will come down to rescue him, Miyad Mitzrayim, literally from the hand of Egypt, right, from the power of Egypt, and to bring him up min haaretz hahi, from that land, el eretz tova ulchava, to a good and spacious land, el eretz zavat chalav udvash, to a land flowing with milk and honey, el makom hakanani, and to the place of the Canaanite. Lauren, I see you. I'll recognize you in a second. Just let me finish the sentence. V'hachiti, the Hittite, v'ha'emori, the Amorite, v'ha'prizi, and the Perizzite, v'hachivi, and the Hivite, v'ha'yevusi, and the Jebusite. Yes, Lauren.
Well, there's no Rashi on this, so I was wondering why it says him instead of them. I have descended to rescue him
Right.
and to bring him up.
Right. So I'm so glad you asked that. That's a great question. And I think it's because he sees the Jewish people as a singular, right? That it's in a sense a collective noun or a collective pronoun here, but also to say that as a people, God sees us, that would be a singular, right? The word would be, he says, ami, my people, right? That's singular. So that from a grammatical point of view, that would explain the singular pronoun there. But seeing us as one united, or at least one entity. Um, so I think that's the explanation of that. That he's not rescuing them as a plural, but as a nation, and that's
Then,
part of the idea as well. Yeah.
then it should be rescued it.
Well, remember, there's no it in Hebrew, right?
Well, it's the same as him. I mean, it's the same word,
Uh,
but
It's true. It's
as
just
far as the translation, because it just sounds like you're talking about one person when you say him, as
okay.
opposed to if one nation if you say it.
Right. I think the reason why, so you could then turn the question and say, why am I choosing to rescue, to mention him? I think it's just because it sounds a little more personal than it. It sounds so impersonal. And him, on the other hand, assumes a different kind of relationship. And I know maybe it's being insensitive to some of the sensitivities that are part of our present culture. I'm a dinosaur here, but when I say him, I'm not focused on the masculinity of it. I'm focused on the
Right.
personality of it. And
But
yeah,
interestingly, Chabad does put them as a translation, even
interesting.
though it clearly doesn't say that.
Okay. So Nog Sav would be their taskmasters. No, no, that still would be uh their yeah, their taskmasters. As opposed, I'm trying to think, or would it be Nog Sehem? That would, so no, it's his taskmasters. His taskmasters. Yeah. It's still singular. It's still singular here.
But
Um, yeah, go ahead.
I, it does make sense that it would be better translated as its taskmasters, but it may be that in the translation they're just using the pronoun differently. I don't see how it's his.
Well, it's his Hebrew, okay? Hebrew does not have it doesn't have a neutral pronoun, okay?
Right, but we're
It's
talking about the translation.
right. So I'm talking about a translation. So which way do you want to go with the translation? Do you want to translate it more literally, which also preserves the warmth of the masculine pronoun, or do you want to translate it with its, which is not a translation because it doesn't carry with it the connotation of the Hebrew. And I mean, this is where translations break down. So I mean, you pays your money and you makes your choices, and if you prefer its taskmasters, and you feel that's a more accurate translation, that's okay too. I think it becomes a personal choice at this point. I mean, I certainly have my reasons for going the way I went, but I also want to be sensitive. So let me go back on something else on the Rashi where he says, I really love this expression, samti lev, right? It means to pay attention, but the Hebrew means I have placed my heart. And I love the fact that if you literally translate the Hebrew, that paying attention literally means give heart, right? It's talking about the fact that to pay attention is an emotional thing. It's basically it comes from an emotional place in a human being when you pay attention. Just love that expression. Yes, let's sim lave, pay attention. I'm open to any more comments if you want to on the issues that were raised. If you want to raise more issues. All right. Va'ered lahatzilo, and let's see. Yeah, we did this. The land of flowing with milk and honey, and the land of etc. The sense is, I think, significant. I think, given the times in which we are currently living, where there's a sincere challenge of the Jewish people and what right they have to the land of Israel, and you look at these sources, and nobody would dispute how early these sources are, and just how woven throughout these sources is the relationship of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. I mean, it is absolutely part of the DNA. And I'm not saying that to exclude anyone else. Again, my sense is that if you're empowered, that places a responsibility on you to empower others, right? But regardless, there cannot be a question about its relationship, about the relationship that we have to the land of Israel. And in some ways, I think I appreciate even more that in 1948, the state of Israel could be declared in our times. And look, for practically 2,000 years, very close to it, the Jewish people were not on the land. They were in exile. That's an incredible amount of time. And yet this is such a part of our study and our awareness, etc. It's just that it's not because of nationalistic interests. It has to do with fulfilling your soul as a human being, as a Jewish human being. That's what it has to do with. And the idea of the mitzvot bringing you into that and being able to fulfill a relationship. It's coming home in a very, very powerful kind of sense. Going on. Va'ata. And now, Hine tza'akat b'nei Yisrael ba'a elai. Behold, right, indeed, the cries of the children of Israel comes to me. So again, the cry, I guess I would have to say, because it's not tza'akot, it's tza'akat. The cry of the children of Israel comes to me, is coming to me. The gam ra'iti, and I have also seen et halachatz, the pressure, asher Mitzrayim lochatzim otam, with which the Egyptians pressure them. Let's take a look and see if there's any Rashi on this.
No,
Not yet.
not
Not
10.
yet. Next
But
verse.
this kind of justifies what you said about it or him, because even though we know there's a plural amount of people, the cry came up as a unified,
Exactly.
one sound.
Right. Which of course tells you the degree in which, the Jewish people were suffering. So no, I appreciate Lauren, what you're saying. I also understand the sensitivity required. So, but anyway, I'm asking to bear with me, if you will. Va'ata. Okay, so remember, look at this va'ata here and this va'ata here. And what it's saying is, here's the situation. This is what I want to do about it, right? The va'ata, and now. This is what I want to do about it now. And now, lecha, go. So now he's being commissioned. Moses is being commissioned. Va'eshlachacha el paro, and I will send you to Pharaoh. V'hotzei et ami, and bring out my people, Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, mi Mitzrayim, from Egypt. Put yourselves in the position of Moses. Can you imagine hearing this? Remember, he's in Midian. He's basically in Midian because he's had to flee for his life, right? Because he realizes Pharaoh is going to kill him, and God is telling him he needs to go back and speak to Pharaoh to free the slaves, right? Can you imagine, right? What a task, what a commission. So let's go into the Rashi. And now go and I will send you. So of course the I will send you is important, and we're going to see. The im tomar ma toil. And should you say, Moses, well, how's this going to help? How's it going to help? V'hotzei et ami. Okay, let's see. this take out my people. Yo'ilu dvarecha, right? Your words will be effective. V'totzi'em misham, and you will take them out of there. Right, so he's understanding the Hodsei et Ami, maybe not so much as an imperative, as a fact, right? So that this construction here, he's understanding this grammatical construction, is there to tell Moses and to anticipate, right, of course, the enormity of this task that he's being given. So we can understand really and truly Moses's resistance. So going on. Vayomer Moshe Elohim, Elohim. And Moses said to God, Mi Anochi, who am I? Ki elech el Paro, that I should go to Pharaoh. V'chi otzi et bnei Yisrael min Yitzrayim, and indeed will I take out the children of Israel from Egypt. Mi Anochi, who am I? Ma'ani chashuv, how important am I? Of what significance do I have? Ledaber im hamlachim, to speak to kings. V'chi otzi et bnei Yisrael, and indeed, am I going to bring out the children of Israel? Va'af im chashuvani, and even if I am important enough, if I do have that significance, ma zachu Yisrael, on what account do Israel merit? What have they done to deserve sheta'aseh lahem nes, that you should perform such a miracle for otzi'am mitzrayim, and that I should bring them out of Egypt? So there's a double-edged sword here in a way, right? Going on. Vayomer Elohim, Vayomer, and he said, this is God said, Ki eheyemach, I will be with you. I will be with you. And this will be the sign to you. Ki anochi shalachticha, that indeed I have commissioned you. I have sent you. V'hotziacha et ha'am mimitzrayim. When you in fact take out the people from Egypt, when you bring them out of Egypt, ta'avdun et ha'elohim, you will serve God al ha'ar hazeh, on this mountain. So that's the sign. It's a future sign. So Rashi is going to have to comment on this, and quite extensively, as we see, right? Vayomer ki eyeyim, and he said, I will be with you. So he heshivo al rishon. So God was answering Moses on the first issue. He gave him of his first answer was on the first issue, where Moses was saying, who am I? What significance have I? But acharon, and regarding that second part where we understood through Rashi, where he was questioning whether the Jewish people, in fact, merited coming out of Egypt, he mentions that as well. She'amarta mionechi, that which you said, who am I, ki elech el paro, that I should go to Pharaoh. Lo shalchahi, it's not your decision. That's not up to you. Ki imishali, that's my decision, God says. Ki eyemach, because I'm going to be with you. I'm going to make sure you're able to do this. Bezeh hamar'eh asher ra'ita basneh. And this is the implication of the vision that you saw in the bush. Right? He saw this burning bush. L'cha ha'ot. This is your sign, ki anochi shalachticha, that I am sending you, v'tatzliach b'shlichuti, and you will be successful in my commission. Ukidai ani, and I am worthy, l'hatzil, to save you. I'm capable of it. Ka'asher, just as you saw, ka'asher ra'ita hasneh oseh shlichuti, that the bush is performing my commission. I'm having it burn, right? It's on fire, ve'einenu ukal, and it's not being consumed. So you're going into the fire, buddy. You're going into that fire facing Pharaoh, but you're going to come out unscathed. You're not going to get hurt. Kach telech b'shlichuti. That is the way. You're going to go in a similar way in my commission. Ve'encha nizak, and you will not be injured. You will not be injured. I'm going to stop here for this morning, and with God's help, we will continue this in our next lesson.
That was a good Rashi, to compare
Yes.
Moses' plight to the bush.
Yes, I know, I know. Of course, right, Rashi gets this from, Midrashim and Talmud and stuff. His knowledge is so extensive that that's his job, to go into this very complex material, and it's his genius to be able to express it in these, I want to say, beautifully simple words, straightforward words that he does. So we'll stop here.